Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You are joining your host Greg Tompsett and my partner in crime, Aaron Quinn. How does it feel?
To be the second best team in the AFC, maybe in football.
Football.
Feels great. Feels fantastic. I love it.
Yeah, I just watched my team play maybe their worst first half of the season and still beat the number one seed in the conference by double digits. That's what I just watched.
Yeah, we'll get into the details, man, but that whole first half, both sides was just sloppy, ugly football. Great defense, and I like a good defensive battle, but sloppy. But what a turnaround of a game, what a change of events, big plays, everything you could want for Bills fans that have sat through 20 years. They showed that clip of the last time they were on Sunday Night Football, just getting destroyed by teams like Tom Brady and the Patriots, and everything you could ask for in a primetime game. The opponent, the weight of the opponent, the weight of the game, what it matters for the season, for them to come up with so many great big plays and come out of the half and get rid of that third quarter narrative that we've been seeing all year and really put a team away in the end. Like, you couldn't have written a better script for a fun way to have a Sunday Night Football game, man.
Oh, it was unbelievable. It checked every single box. It was, and I kept kind of talking with people on Twitter, getting upset that they're 11-1. They're really, really good. They've found ways to win every single game. You're not going to just blow them off the field or score every time you had the ball. But the Bills, played complementary football. In the first half, the defense was picking them up. The defense was keeping them in the game, not letting them get ahead of themselves. Scored our first defensive touchdown of the season, which was huge and timely, and obviously in hindsight now looks like an enormous shift in the momentum. Then you turn that over to being able to now the offense is going, and even when Pittsburgh started to get things figured out a little bit, got a couple of points on the board, the offense kept going and being able to go there. And that kind of complementary football in a huge primetime game against a number one seed and a team that you're going to probably have to go through in the playoffs to be able to make a run here. This is real. I mean, this is what big time teams do, and it's unbelievable to be able to see it with my team. I'm just so not used to it.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to kind of be on this pedestal of like, I told you so. And it was you and I really here all year long talking about when the defense was struggling early in the year. And then the offense had some struggles, right, in October. And this team just wasn't playing complete games. And we were saying, that stinks, but it's okay because they're winning and they haven't put together complete, full, well-balanced games. And Sean McDermott and Leslie Frazier talked about this that entire time, saying like, yes, it stinks that we're not playing our best, but you don't want to play your best right now. Now, this time that they are actually playing their best football on defense, playing clean special teams. Obviously, you had the missed extra point. Pretty rare for Bass right now. He's playing phenomenal.
He's playing well. That's not a concern.
Playing great special teams, playing amazing offense, really being able to just pick teams apart. It's all come together. They're playing their best football at the most important time. I think people looked at this last month and we're talking about what a terrible stretch this was going to be over the next 6 weeks. But they just came out of it one crazy, totally improbable pass away from running undefeated for the last 6 weeks of the season so far here. Getting healthy at the right time. We're just waiting on John Brown to come back. Look what this offense did without him. We're just going to get him back. The excitement needs to be at a fever pitch because they can run the table here, dude. Not to get ahead of ourselves. These next 3 games, you can run the table here, man, and things get pretty crazy if you're a Buffalo Bills fan. But this is what we've all been waiting for.
Ron, thank you, man. Very, very generous. Tonight is an awesome night. And, let's dive right in. We have a lot of fun. Tonight's show is presented by our friends at Uncle Jumbo's. I can't imagine a better night to be able to celebrate and share some Uncle Jumbo's responsibly. We'll get into that with our responsible play later. We'll get into that with all the good stuff going on over at WESTHERR and our drive of the game. We even had some fun picking out which one that we're going to go for the drive of the game. Yeah. But let's dive right in. This was a first half where, there were some fair questions. Is Josh Allen going to be able to figure out this number one vaunted defense, number one overall, and being able to figure out what the, number one DVOA, number one passing, most sacks, getting after the quarterback. And honestly, it's tough to be able to figure out, okay, man, this looks rough. He's not being able to figure it out. And I don't understand, but the point that he flipped the switch and what his stat line ended up 24-43, so not the prettiest day overall. You're talking about being able to put together 238 yards, 2 touchdowns, an interception that was a tip ball, but was still, him under pressure and his arm getting hit. His first game under 60% completion percentage in a while. Ended up with 6 carries for 28 yards, a really critical first down later, and what would have been a soul-crushing 28-yard rush that they ended up picking up the yards anyways. So I think the fact that, a 56 completion percentage and 238 yards with 2 touchdowns and an interception, and it ended up looking as impressive as it did, and you have people like Chris Collinsworth saying, we may be watching a star being born here. That's pretty crazy. It's just amazing that this was, on paper, one of his worst games of the season, and I walked away impressed.
Yeah, definitely one of his worst halves. The second half, he was on the money. But I think what is probably not getting talked about enough, I'm not on Twitter right now, is the offensive line, the way they responded in that second half. Because I think it was part, for sure, Josh Allen, and I think Dable getting him into some quicker reads there in the second half, getting Diggs, just feeding Diggs. There's not a DB in the entire NFL that can guard Stephon Diggs.
He was embarrassing grown men for a stretch there.
Yeah, and he's going to continue to. He's done it all year. It's fantastic. But kudos to the offensive line. They got really beat up in that first half. When Morse got hurt and they switched some things around, it wasn't pretty. It didn't look good. When Morse came right back, he gave up that big sack. That was the fumble on Allen. And so he was struggling with some injuries. Cam Hayward was wrecking the interior of that offensive line for that entire first half, dude. Kudos to Darrell Williams. I didn't see any help really most of the game.
I expected it to be a ton of chips and double teams. He had, he had 2 penalties. He had the false start early, and then as everyone kept commenting to me, he looked like he false started every snap the rest of the game. But whatever, he was timing the snap. He had the one hold that honestly T.J. Watt was going to get Josh. So hey, a sack or a hold, it's the same thing.
I don't want to hit Josh.
and don't let people hit Josh. So good job. But I expected it to be Lee Smith and Dawson Knox chipping all game long, and it was one-on-one. I'm going to say 90% of the snaps. There wasn't more than 10 chips that I saw. So being able to see that was incredibly impressive. And I get it. I like Mitch Morse a lot. I like our interior line a lot. We are not set up to handle the Craig Haywards of the world, or Cam Haywards. Craig Hayward is dad. But the Cam Haywards of the world, he is just unbelievably powerful. That's the worst matchup for Mitch Morse. Mitch Morse is good with movement, great reads, getting out in space. He's not an anchor against a Cam Hayward. So, it's frustrating that did look bad there for a while and most of the game. But their adjustments and their ability to not let that crazy front seven take over was critical.
Not only that, but then you fast forward to that fourth quarter and that final drive and the physicality that this offensive line showed. And it was so hyped up last week against San Francisco about, can the Bills match the physicality of this super physical defense? Yeah. Well, they did it, and now they did it again against probably, I think, even with the injuries, the best front seven in all of football. Even with the injuries to Bud Dupree and their linebackers, they're still a top front seven in the NFL. So you got to feel good heading into the final stretch of the season, heading into the playoffs, that this offensive line, if they stay healthy with this unit, they can go with anybody. You're not going to see a more dynamic player than TJ Watt. That's as dynamic as it gets. You're not going to see a more powerful, dynamic interior lineman than Cam Hayward. This was a test, in my opinion, of the offensive line, and at least the second half, they passed this test, and that makes me feel really good.
Oh, it's fantastic. And just a quick shout out. It's almost midnight and my grandma's in here watching the game with us.
Grammy.
So my grandma's way cooler than all of your grandmas. So it's just, it's unbelievable to be able to go through. Tim, thank you very much for your generosity. It really means a lot. As far as the running backs go tonight, it didn't look all that impressive when you think about each individual, play 27 for 104. Our long run was 14. But that stretch late, where Zach Moss was just laying the hammer down, it took us 13 games into the year. That's what I envisioned when we drafted him. That's what I had in mind when we drafted this guy, was to be that fourth quarter 4-minute offense hammer. And this was the first time we've seen that, where you had some guys making some business decisions that did not want to tackle him, and he was falling forward over and over again. The offense was creating some holes. So a glimpse of maybe something that could matter down the stretch. I don't know that that's, this is still going to be a passing team. It was still 43 pass attempts to 27 rushes. I'm totally fine with that split. But I will say that glimpse I saw at the end was encouraging.
Yeah, it was another thing you needed to check off the list to head into the playoffs with, because you have to have that in your arsenal, that 4-minute offense where you can just have a team at an arm's length and put them away. And they did that and passed that test with flying colors. I don't know if it's something they can do consistently. I'd like to see it another time or two before they get into the playoffs, but I do think it's something that I wanted to see get checked off the list. And if that's where the production from the running game primarily is coming, that's the best problem to have, is that you need your running backs to put the game away when you're up by 2 possessions. Like, yes, but throw me all those problems and then we'll deal with it when it comes time. But it was good to see them get that going. I was a little nervous with the running game. I did think, as much as I am a non-believer in 300 passing yards mattering, as far as success rate to wins, the lack of production from the running game for the first 3 quarters really was, I thought this was going to live and die on Josh Allen's arm, and probably that DPI, he gets over 300 yards if he gets that DPI and maybe a couple other balls. I don't know where he ended up at yard wise, but he gets close to that 300 mark. With that DPI. So it wasn't far off. I don't love the idea that he has to pass that much. I would like to see a little more production come from the running backs earlier in the game.
Yeah, if you add in those 2 interference penalties, he does get close. I think he puts him at almost 290, so it would have been just under. But that ballpark to be able to be in that space. And when you talk about this passing game, it took a minute, and I was talking about it with folks on Twitter that early on Josh wasn't figuring out the pressure. Dable couldn't find quite the right mix. Once they found that stretch where they started doing the max protect and basically saying, listen, Stephon, we can't put 4 guys into this route. We're going to need to keep 7 into protect. You just need to toast your guy. Can you do that for us? And he roasted his man over and over and over again. Stephon Diggs ends the game with 10 catches for 130 yards and a touchdown, is now leading the NFL in targets, leading the NFL in catches, and is top 3 in yards. It was unbelievable. This was his combination of either his best and also his most important game as a Buffalo Bill. This is the first time that, without question, the Bills don't win this game without Stephon Diggs. He was a critical piece to winning this game, and an awesome way to see him step up in a spot where they needed him. And he not only stepped up, but thrived against an awesome defense.
There's some people, I think, running up and down my street yelling "Go Bills" right now, for sure.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. I'm not even mad at them at all.
No, that's fantastic.
Yes, this is why you make that trade. This is why you swing that trade for Stephon Diggs. I love Cole Beasley. I think he's having an incredible season, but he doesn't jumpstart the offense in the way that a real true wide receiver one like Stephon Diggs.
He's a safety blanket.
He's a safety blanket. He can get the offense kind of going. Stephon Diggs took this game over, dude, and it wasn't even close. If they had to keep going to him, they would have, and they could have, and it would have just spiraled out of control for the Steelers. They had no answer for him. I don't know that there's anyone in the league that really has an answer for him when he gets going. It's so nice for Josh Allen to have somebody that, when things are just going so poorly, you can pinpoint on one guy and say, look, let's feed this guy and everything else will get going. We haven't had that in so long. For them to be able to get that for Josh Allen, we've seen the jump. Josh Allen hasn't magically gotten 50% better, right? Like, it's the tools around him, it's the comfort in the offense, and this relationship that he's building with Diggs, man. Throw all the money you want at Josh Allen at this point. Do it with Diggs too. Keep these two together for as long as possible. This is going to be a special run that they're going to go on it. And he really solidified himself tonight. For people that don't watch the Bills, up there with the Julio Jones of the league. Like, he is in that category of top 5 wide receiver in the league. Even though he's leading in statistics, he needs to be talked like that about that on a regular basis.
So thank you very much, Daniel. We appreciate it. Somebody just gave us Australian money. I don't know currency rates right now. We might be millionaires. This might be awesome. Yeah. I don't even know.
I bet it
is. So the great part is, I don't know that Gabe Davis had an amazing game tonight, and he almost had 2 touchdowns. So that's pretty impressive.
It was probably his worst game until the touchdown. Like, he had those drops. It was weird. It was a weird game for him.
Yeah. So the fact that also Dawson Knox had his normal, a couple pretty cool games, also a couple infuriating drops that are just really, really frustrating. Again, Justin, you guys are so generous tonight. Thank you guys very, very much. I love the fact that John Brown's coming next week, and now Gabe Davis and Dawson Knox can drop back to rotating as the 4th option in the pass game. That's fantastic. We can run more of those 10 sets and be able to really stress defenses. You can ease into those things, and we still have, when you talk about Dawson Knox or Gabe Davis as your 4th option, now I'm more excited. When you have to rely on them to be the 3rd piece of the offense, it gets tougher. I was nervous about that tonight. So the fact that we passed that test, and now we're going to be able to bring John Brown back into this offense with Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley just humming along and really in tune with Josh Allen, this could get really scary.
Absolutely. For anyone that is on the train of, see what we've done without John Brown, we don't need him. That's a totally opposite way to think, in my opinion. Like, we finally have all these nice toys to play with. Why would you not want them all? Like, I just think about it. Imagine what it could be when Brown is back. And I know he's going to be eligible to come back here. I'm actually fine if they just keep letting him sit and get fully healthy. Like, I don't know where his health is at. The Bills are not going to tell us.
Like a Milano type rotation, bring him in, let him play 10 or 15 snaps.
Yes. I'm totally cool with him playing 2 games before they get into the playoffs, or even a full game before they get into the playoffs. I'd like him to get some of that game speed back before they hit into the playoffs, but I don't necessarily.
What was that word you just said? Playoffs? Because if Cleveland wins tomorrow night, the Bills will clinch the playoffs and officially clinch.
But a little slower and a little deeper.
If tomorrow night the Cleveland Browns beat the Baltimore Ravens this early in the season, the Buffalo Bills will already clinch a playoff spot and be this close to clinching a division championship.
I love that, man.
Oh, yeah, it's so fantastic.
So I agree with you, though. I don't love Gabe Davis as that 3rd option. I love him as the 4th option now. And him as the 4th option in this offense, the way Josh Allen is decisive, like we saw in the second half. I don't look around the league and see a lot of defenses. I know KC gave him some fits, and that was his worst game of the year. But I looked at what KC did today, and that I think he could tear that defense. If they came with that defense, I think he could tear that up. So there's nobody that scares me at this point, especially when they got Jeff Brown back.
Oh, yeah. And then you brought it up earlier. I think when you consider the offensive line with what they were facing, which is the league-leading sacking team in the NFL, they showed that stupid graphic over and over again. They got their 70th straight game with a sack. Well, guess what? That was the only sack of the game.
Right.
Now, they did get some hands up. They got their hands on Josh's arm a couple times. We got lucky on one, and on the very next play, Cam Hayward got his arm on the ball and ends up getting an interception. That interception was not on Josh. That was a tip ball up in the air. Then right back after that, they're going after the ball. Dawson Knox makes a catch and tips the ball up. So all those things considered, with the way that this defense has taken over games, you guys can see that they have not had a special offense all season. So that part wasn't, a change. It's that their defense kept making so many plays, giving them short fields, just like they did tonight. They got the ball at the 30-yard line. They punched it in for a touchdown because, when you start the ball there, it's not that hard to be able to convert. So being able to do that, I think the offensive line played really well tonight in the grand scheme of things. It wasn't perfect. You're never going to be perfect against this front seven, but you're telling me they're going to end up with 1 sack and 5 quarterback hits? That's pretty manageable against this front.
Yeah, I'm super happy right now with the offensive line, and I'm sure some things will pop up in the All-22 that we don't like. But the thing that I like the most is sort of the mental aspect of what they went through in that first half. Really, that could have gone downhill south in the second half if this group as a unit wasn't made up of mentally tough guys, because they really did get beat up physicality wise. They were just getting beat up that entire first half, and they were really stalling out the offense. The turnover Josh Gann hit, that's on the line. Like the couple of the swats, like Josh running around for his life, running backwards 5 yards and just chucking him up off his back feet. That's because of the offensive line. For them to come out with the response that they had, and we're seeing that over and over again with this team, this mentally tough. We saw the way they rebounded to the Hail Murray and come out and just put together win after win, and totally respond to that. Other teams, past Bills teams, don't respond to that. The season derails. Past Bills teams don't respond well to that first half, and they come out and vomit all over themselves. So it's really good to see them respond to that, and those are the little lessons within the game that matter to me a ton.
Yeah, so we have Filipino money now.
Yes.
I got to check with my retirement consultant after this game that we might be sitting on a gold mine. I don't even understand how this works.
I will retire from the show.
So, comment here by Anthony. I just want to take a quick second for anybody who doesn't see some of the cartoons, and I know obviously I think more often they're political and things along those lines. Adam Ziglis had a fantastic post of just in the madness of this year, and it was called The Bright Spot, and it was like a Jackson Pollock painting, but then kind of hollowed out in the middle with just the Bills logo.
Sort of like my cover one, but with the Bills logo.
Yes, yeah, but honestly, he's probably stole it from you.
I'll take some credit.
And just the fact that amidst what has been admittedly a pretty terrible year, it's really kind of fun to have this bright spot to cling to, in that this is the most fun Buffalo Bills season in 20 years. And it's just awesome to have so many people to celebrate. And there's so many of you here watching with us tonight. We really, really genuinely appreciate it and can't say thank you enough.
Yeah, and we talked about it last week of really not knowing how to act now that we're here. And it's just worse tonight for me. But I will say it's been such a wild year. And you brought it up on the pregame show that we did of, like, for the first time this year, feeling kind of bummed about not being able to have fans there just for the game. I wouldn't have gone personally just because it's so late, but it would have been cool to see some of the shots of the game if the game continued to went the way we saw it, with just a ruckus crowd of fans. So that was a bummer. I was out for a walk before the game. It's just a really perfect night in Western New York for football. It would have been just a lot of fun to see fans. So that is a bummer of 2020, but it doesn't take away from how good this feels. I'll watch it on our TV. It didn't take away from it at all.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. It's actually made the experience in our Cover One Slack channel, on Twitter, and the Bills Mafia social media areas. It's actually enhanced it a little bit, because now there's 70,000 people plus maybe the 100,000, 150,000 that can be in the stadium area on game days that you can't really be on social media. Now everybody's out there, so it's been kind of probably a slight bonus in the experience for the folks who don't get to go to games to be able to see that. But pivoting over here to the defensive side of the ball, this was a phenomenal defensive performance. You're talking about they gave up one real defensive touchdown drive the entire game. The one was on a short field where they gave up a touchdown because they started with the ball 30 yards away and converted there. Then they did give up the one late in the game, a 10-play 81-yard drive that was real. But overall, holding this team to 15 yards, getting a sack on Ben Roethlisberger is a big deal. He has given up almost no sacks all year. Washington won that game on Monday night, and they didn't touch Roethlisberger. They had 2 quarterback hits and 0 sacks. It's impossible to get to him. So the fact that they hit him as many times as they did, you could tell it got into his head and that he was really struggling with it. So they got a sack. They got multiple quarterback hits, getting to him 5 times and being able to cause that pressure. And obviously, sitting on those quick short routes, I'm going to give you a minute here. Taron Johnson with the game tilting play of the game. I don't know that the rest of it goes as well as it does if he doesn't make that pick 6 when he does. At that point, you're talking the Bills are down. They're losing. It's going poorly. Everybody's frustrated. They're down 7-3. We're going into the half, and boom, Taron Johnson picks off Ben Roethlisberger and takes it back for a touchdown.
You keep talking to me like this, and I'm going to fall in love with you, man. First, I want to address sort of like I hate to keep, that we were right, but this defense, the struggles early in the season, there was a ton of panic of we got to replace all these guys. We need to swing a trade for that one tech, and I was on the board with that one. But we're never going to be able to beat good teams without these things. We need to get rid of Taron Johnson. He's a liability. We need to get rid of Klein. He's a liability. We got to, even lately, we got to get rid of Levi Wallace. And I haven't seen the all-22 on that touchdown. It didn't look good for Levi. He totally got turned around. I think it was still cover 3, and Micah needed to be there. He got looked off a little bit, but it didn't look good for Levi.
Either way, it wasn't a great performance, even if he needed some help. But
all these, complaints over those first 4 weeks, 6 weeks of the defense, then we started to see things trending in the right direction, and it took some time. But I've been on this show post-game pounding the table that, hey, this thing's trending in the right direction here slowly but surely, and now I think this was the pinnacle performance for this team. I mean, the Steelers offense isn't a juggernaut offense, but they move the ball. They still score some points. To hold an offense under 20 points in the NFL in 2020 is a big deal. That's a big deal this year, and they did it, and they did it in a dominant fashion. Like you said, only one real legitimate touchdown drive tonight. But yeah, I'll take all the wins from anyone that wants to come rain. Hey, you were right about Taron Johnson on me. That pick six, man, was textbook. There is nothing more beautiful than watching a cornerback read the quarterback's eyes and jump a route like that. It's one of the best plays in football. I've wanted to see it all year. We haven't seen any scoring from this Bills defense, and for it to be Taron just made my heart just grow. I love Taron so much. And then to see Levi get a pick on the other end late in the game, to see him get his hands on the ball, and good for this coaching staff for sticking with these guys, even though I know it drives fans nuts. I'm sure there might be a better option on the roster that we can at least talk about. I'm down for talking, but they stick with these guys, and they came up big tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable to see the faith that they have, and then to see guys like Klein and Taron Johnson and Levi Wallace come. Tremaine Edmonds, yes.
Playing out of his mind.
People were trying to explain to me why we should convert him to a defensive end, and I was trying not to gouge my eyeballs out. Being able to stick through there, what will kind of come forward here, but with the secondary, I thought Trey White played a strong game. The safeties were all over the place.
Flying around.
Oh yeah, and seeing in a game like this where Roethlisberger is just going to be trying to get the ball out over and over and over again. It's hard not to get caught deep and not to get caught on double moves because you're constantly coming up. And I thought they were really disciplined, coming up, sound tackling. There was one stretch where during that scoring drive, they had a couple of missed tackles. Beyond there, they were really sound in their tackling all game long. And when you have athletes like Deontay Johnson, Juju Smith-Schuster, Chase Claypool, guys that are really tough to get down on the ground, some of that tackling was really impressive. I thought that I liked the rotation to give Josh Norman a drive or two and get him onto the field, and they came back to Levi Wallace, and Levi obviously made a huge play where they were trying to get back in that game and being able to go for that kill shot to be able to pull them right back in there. One, not to let James Washington get that, but two, to have Levi pick it off was just enormous to be able to do that. So I thought the secondary as a whole played really well considering we lost Taron Johnson, and for any fans that aren't aware, Taron Johnson left the game with a concussion. Certainly need to monitor that very closely. I don't want to see him in Denver. Let's give him some time. Same way that I didn't want Mitch Morse to rush back. We have time. We have the depth. They need to focus on moving forward with that, but we'll monitor that closely as it happens.
Yeah, and I thought Neal stepped in fine. It wasn't a glaring
problem.
Acceptable. The touchdown that was given up was a pick play. I'm not going to put that on Neal. That's a tough one to communicate.
And I was going to say the communication was big because if you have a whole week of practice with him as the starting nickel, they'll be a little bit more ready for that.
For sure, and so I'm not going to put that entirely on him. Anthony hits it on the head, man. Milano had a really nice game. He crushed Ben Roethlisberger on that one sack. He just came out and was playing exactly like we've seen Matt Milano come out and play, and I actually thought this would take a little bit longer as we kind of drifted into this part of the season, that they would still kind of keep him in slower and slower, but he was all over the field tonight making plays, and that was good to see because I think his health that means that the team trusts it, that the trainers trust it, and that he's heading in the right direction to be fully healthy to end this season. And that's a plus. I know people are really excited about AJ Klein and that couple game stretch he had where he was, getting to sacks, making some big plays. I loved it. Milano's much better player than he is, and it makes a huge difference him playing with Tremaine Edmonds versus Klein. I'm glad Klein's there. I love that depth now. I feel much better about the depth if something was to happen, but to have Milano back is better than any trade we could have swung at the trade deadline, is to get a healthy Matt Milano back.
I can't wait to see the snap count and how they rotated. A couple people asking, like, Gordon, do I think they pulled Levi or benched him? I don't. I think that was planned to rotate in Josh Norman. And I think the fact that they went right back to Levi, I think, is showing that. If it was a benching or something like that, I think Norman would have stayed in the game because he played pretty well. He actually made a nice play on a ball when Chase Claypool went for a jump ball, had a nice tackle on Claypool. I think if it was a benching, they would have gone that route. Going, back into the linebackers, Tremaine Edmonds, in some post-game comments, he actually talked to the team, and Stephon Diggs mentioned that Tremaine Edmonds was telling everybody, don't celebrate. This is no big deal. We have a lot more to accomplish. It's okay to be happy about this win, but understanding that they have that mindset is so fantastic. And to hear that from Tremaine Edmonds, who I think just turned 22, is unbelievable, to have that kind of maturity from a player that's really coming into his own and getting something special here. The front seven, I thought, did a nice job. Yeah, I knew it was going to be a frustrating game all day because you're not really going to be able to get home constantly. But the fact that they still got some hits on Roethlisberger. Yeah, got him off his spot, moved him. You saw they never were able to get the running game going. Held them to 17 carries for 47 yards, 2.8 yards per carry, 177 total yards, passing yards. So you held Pittsburgh to 224 total yards, 4.1 yards per play. A really, really strong defense. Ended up still causing 2 turnovers, getting those 2 interceptions, so kind of evening out the turnover battle there. I thought that the defensive line did better than I expected because I didn't even expect them to get as much impact on Roethlisberger as what they did.
Yeah, the thing that really excited me about this game is I know for a fact after that Washington game, Pittsburgh was really practicing and putting emphasis on getting their run game going. And that was something I was worried about, where you have a team that's really working on that, trying to get that going. You're getting James Conner back, and you go up against a Bills team where their Achilles heel, even though they are getting better at the run defense, they do get better at it over the season, but that's still been the Achilles heel since Sean McDermott's gotten here. So I thought this would have been a good opportunity for the Steelers to get that back on track for them and check that box off. This front seven did not allow that run game to get going at all. I think they averaged on the ground total, 2.8 yards I'm looking at right here. James Conner had 1.8 yard average. They just didn't get anything going. A guy that I have liked the past couple weeks here, Vernon Butler, out of nowhere, is getting some nice penetration. A lot of penetration. Like, I'm seeing him in the backfield a few times. Ed Oliver's having a sneaky good season that nobody's talking about. Everyone wants these splash plays like we see Aaron Donald make. It's not there yet. He's still playing a little bit out of position, but he's disruptive too. Like, he's getting back there and causing a ton of disruptive in this run game. We were pounding the table for a one-tech. I think this defense is okay without it. They are getting penetration. The linebackers are shooting it into the holes. They're not allowing anything big to get going on the run game. This is huge, man.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And a couple people making comments with this defensive performance. You saw the article that came out here with Kim Pagula really pushing it, that she thinks Leslie Frazier deserves head coaching gigs. And I know I saw some fans be like, oh, why are you saying that? Let's keep all of our guys together. You guys don't understand how important it is for people. You heard Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott talking about how they're preparing for Brian Daboll to get a head coaching job and talking about him and giving him endorsements. That's what lets people know that you believe in them. When you're putting them up there and you're not trying to hide people or stop them from getting their next opportunity, that goes so far into getting their best performance for you because they're not holding anything back. They're not worried that, if I don't, if I don't put myself out there, they're not going to be able to get me a promotion or whatever I'm looking for. So I think that's fantastic, and it's great to hear that they're being so supportive of it.
Yeah, and it's not only on that end, it's also who whenever if they hire from the outside or bringing guys up in the system, to know that this is a place that encourages growth and wants you to succeed, whether or not it's with them, I think it's a good culture, which it comes back to everything Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane have been trying to build here since they got here. That's just a good family culture that, hey, we're glad you've come up with us and brought success for us. We want you to go on and succeed and hit your goals, because they know Brian Dable's goal isn't to just be an offensive coordinator here for the next 15 years. He wants to be a head coach. Leslie Frazier probably wants another shot at it. And so they know that, and they want to put those people in the position to succeed because, like you said, you get the most out of them while they are here. But then it shows the guys behind them that, hey, this organization is going to put everything they can into me succeeding and growing too.
Absolutely. So as we shift over here for our friends at Uncle Jumbo's, we want to talk about celebrating and enjoying a game like tonight. You want to enjoy Uncle Jumbo's responsibly. So to sponsor that, our Uncle Jumbo's responsible play of the game. I think we had a lot of choices tonight. There was a lot of things out there from an individual basis, or even more strategically. You had some of the shifts. I'll mention, I thought, shifting to that max protect, I thought was pretty responsible to be able to slow down that rush and trust that Stephon Diggs could beat his man. So I think that's worthy of it. What were you thinking from a responsible standpoint?
I'm going to stick right here with this coaching staff, and it's not. I'm kind of cheating on this one because it's not necessarily a responsible play of this game, but it resulted in some of the plays we saw in that, trusting the process, trusting your players, trusting the scheme that you have. We saw the overreaction from a lot of people like myself, content makers, fans of this defense, of this team early in the season, and they stuck. Yes, also go by Uncle Jumbo's. They stuck with them, and you saw them reap some of the fruits of that with the Taron Johnson pick 6, with Levi getting a pick. Like, sticking with your players when they struggle is hard to sit there for fans and say, this guy's struggle. I see him struggling. He's a problem on this team. Get him out of here. For the coaches to be able to sit there and say, hey, we trust enough in our teaching. We trust enough in who this guy is, and we want to see how they respond to this adversity, I think speaks volumes about this coaching staff. Because you do see coaches, I think, around the league pull a guy, and the guy behind him is not better, and the situation can get worse, and then you develop a lack of confidence in the guy that you pulled, and it just snowballs out of control. I think they've done a nice job, and I think it's responsible to allow these guys to develop, especially, like we keep saying, while they're winning. They're developing young players and building confidence while they're continuing to win.
Absolutely. And I think it really, speaks to the development, develop our own, draft, develop, and re-sign. It shows that kind of trust to be able to go through there. And they do the same thing from a coaching standpoint. People ask all the time, what happens if Daboll leaves? I don't think it's as simple. Some people think it's an automatic promotion for Ken Dorsey. He's never called plays, so I don't know for sure, but he's certainly a great person to keep in-house and a very likely candidate for that kind of scenario. And the fact that, like you said, seeing the environment that they're building here, it brings them in even further to be able to encourage why you would want to work for a team like Buffalo, because you're going to be able to get your next opportunity from it.
Yep, absolutely.
So now switching over to our friends at WESTHERR, our drive of the game. This was a fun one because there was a lot of choices. So I'll let you lead off.
Well, there were not a lot of choices in the first half of this football game. That was pretty ugly. But when we get to the second half, I'm going to go with the first drive of the second half. I think the reason for me on this one is it was a nice, clean drive, feeding Stephon Diggs, just letting him eat on these guys. It really put life in this team coming out of half. And that's something that the Bills have struggled with. Whether or not it's a thing, I think, coming out of the bye, all of us content creators and people that follow the Bills were trying to find out what was going on in the third quarter. And I don't think anyone came away with a good answer as to what was happening.
All of us tried.
Yeah, we were all looking for it. Nobody found a good answer. They sort of put it to bed against the Niners, but it was an even. They scored
10-10 technically.
10-10. Yeah, so it wasn't. They didn't really put it to bed. For them to come out, put a really clean drive together in a game that was looking so ugly, I felt like that could have been all the difference in this game. The first team to kind of put a drive like that together might win this thing. So for them to come out and do that, get this team at an arm's length, for me, that really responded to Brian Daboll making adjustments at half, which people complain that he doesn't do, and changing things up and playing against your opponent, and them just coming out and knowing being in the spotlight, knowing that it's a primetime game, and not coming out and vomiting all over yourselves after a big play to swing some momentum by Taron Johnson to end that first half. To come out and do that, I thought spoke volumes about this team and them performing under pressure.
Absolutely. So I think that's a great choice. I'm going to go with one that both Patrick Chase and Mike in the chat were talking about here. The fact that Ben Roethlisberger threw that interception to Levi Wallace. At that point, there was 7 minutes and 11 seconds left in the game. He certainly went over to the sideline and was like, all right, well, that's fine. Let's settle down. Hopefully the defense, gets quick stop here. We still have plenty of time for 2 possessions. We can make this work. They never got the ball back again. The Bills, from that point forward, ran their best, by far, 4-minute offense of the entire season. 13 plays, 52 yards, 7 minutes and 11 seconds to run out the remainder of the clock, and the Pittsburgh Steelers never touched the ball again. It was unbelievable. So that's the kind of play, I was joking about, Zach Moss, not having any regard for those grown men having families. It was something that we haven't seen that all season. They've given the ball back and given up those garbage stats and given up the late touchdown to San Francisco that made it look closer than what it was, and the late touchdown to Seattle to make it look closer than what it was, and the late touchdown to the Raiders to make it look closer than what it was. And tonight, they just crushed their soul. And 13 plays, 52 yards, 7 minutes and 11 seconds when they didn't even need to score and were just ending the game. That is an unbelievable way to put this ball game away.
To me, the best part about that drive is that at one point it was 1st and 20. And they overcame a 1st and 20. And there's not a Bills fan in the world that over the last 20 years has seen that situation where you have a chance to put a team away, your team gets 1st and 20, you're all thinking like, oh, here we go, we're going to punt in 3 plays, right? They didn't. They get converted eventually, and then they continued on that drive. And to see Zach Moss put it away, great effort. Our friend Nate Geary, WJR, had during it tweeted out it was pornographic to watch that 4-minute offense, and it really was, because they couldn't do anything. If you're gonna advance in the playoffs, we talk about it a lot here. Games are close. They're 1-possession games. You have to be able to have a team at arm's length and put them away. It might not have to be a 7-minute drive, but you have to have a 4-minute offense that can really put a team away and roll that.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that, Richard made a great call here. That's the exact kind of thing that we'd have to do to be able to beat Kansas City. If they want to be able to do that, it's about not giving them the ball back and not letting them score.
Keeping them at arm's length.
Being able to do that is a fantastic way to think about it. It's a great point by Richard. And it's just exciting to know that that's a tool in our tool belt. It doesn't mean that we're going to become a run-first team. It doesn't mean we still don't need to put up a bunch of points. Tonight was not the most perfect offensive performance. 26 points was not what we needed. And although the majority of those all came in the second half, 17 of them offensively all coming in the second half was a big part of how they put this team away. But being able to be in that position is something that we need as an option going into the playoffs.
Totally agree.
All right. So as we now step back and look at what we have coming ahead, the Bills are now on a short week, coming off of a Sunday night. At least they're at home, and obviously, riding a little bit high here. And they are now going to pivot to a Saturday game in Denver. So going to be a little bit.
If you call it prime time, I'm going to slap your face off your face.
It is, blue plate,
nationally televised.
Nationally televised, the only game on TV, blue plate special, primetime.
Early bird.
Early bird special primetime. So 4:30 next Saturday afternoon, evening. It's December in the Northeast, so it's going to be dark by that time, anyways. But a game that they cannot take lightly here. It is the lesser of the remaining games on the schedule, but for anybody who didn't see, Denver looked pretty darn good today, taking it to Carolina. Drew Lock looked good. We'll get into that in our preview on Wednesday night, but tonight is a night to celebrate. Tomorrow is going to be a fantastic Victory Monday. Back-to-back primetime games, back-to-back double-digit wins, back-to-back commentating crews praising our team. You're going to want to consume all the content you can, all the national podcasts and shows and everything. Just soak it all up because you guys all deserve every second of it.
Absolutely. And like I said last week when I said gloat a little bit, go out and talk some trash. This 6 weeks, man, if you rewind 6 weeks ago, everyone was saying this is a tough 6 weeks for the Bills. They're going to be lucky to come out of this with 3 wins. And for them to go on this run.
They're a Hail Mary away from this being 7 straight wins.
Yes, and for them to do what they've done, we should definitely be gloating. This team is in the top tier. There's Kansas City, and then there's the Buffalo Bills are right there.
Yes.
And there's not a team that I think deserves to be over them right now in the league. And if you could maybe talk about the Green Bay Packers, I'll put the Green Bay Packers up there.
Sure.
With
the Saints with Breeze back.
I think the Titans might be in that area too still, but that's it. It's a small group of teams that are in that next tier, and the Buffalo Bills are one of them. So we need to enjoy this because we're over the hump. Can they still lose games? Sure, there's going to be challenges in each week coming up. They're all pesky, annoyingly good teams in different ways, but that doesn't matter. We're over the hump of the regular season. This should be pretty smooth sailing heading into the final stretch of this season here and into the playoffs.
Yeah,
we're in, guys. We're in the playoffs. This is going to be a fun ride. This is the best football holiday season that I've ever experienced. Gloat, enjoy it. Tweet it, eat it all up. We haven't been here.
Soak up every single second of it. Ben here talking about how awesome it is to have your other buddies comment on it. So many of you know what this experience is like. When you've been an open, adamant, supportive Bills fan for 20 years, and everybody knows you've kind of gone through the drought, you've gone through all those different things, it sticks out in people's minds. So how many of you have gotten those text messages from people that you don't hear from all that often, or they've reached out on Facebook or on Twitter or on Instagram or on any other social media to connect with you to be like, oh man, your team looks awesome. Soak them all up. Just let it all wash over you. It's going to be fantastic because this is real. Now, do I know that they're going to go on some Super Bowl run? No, I don't. But it's possible. This team is capable of going on a Super Bowl run. And I just said that sentence out loud. Yeah.
I've said a couple weeks ago, I think this team will be in the AFC Championship game. And I'm telling all my friends that. When they tell me how good this team is, I'll gloat it. I think they're that good.
Yeah, and it's something that we need to be excited about, and we're going to be here with you every step of the way. We're going to be able to go through being able to kind of experience each one as we go. We've still got 3 more regular season games. They need to win those games. Seeding matters. I think we're capable of beating the Chiefs. I really want to be on the other side of the bracket from them. I'd really prefer not to play them until the AFC Championship game and to get away from them. With us beating the Steelers tonight, I now feel like the Chiefs are going to get the number 1 seed, which means I'd really like to get the number 2 seed. That means that you get a home game in the opening round, you get another game in the divisional game, all with home games. I want both of those things. We need another loss for Pittsburgh because then our head-to-head win that we just got tonight really matters. That's the kind of thing that we're going to be looking for now, is helping look for, positional seeding wins and paths to the best, path forward. That's something that's new to us. We're used to playing with the schedule simulator to figure out what weird back end way we can sneak into the final wild card spot. We have that. We're in the playoffs. This is happening. We're winning the division. This is now about setting ourselves up for the best playoff run possible. And I haven't been able to say that in 20 years.
Yeah, and even as good as this team is and as excited as I am, even the Broncos, I think a lot of fans are going to sleep on them because they're going to look at the win-loss. We'll get into it this week. There's going to be there's problems with every one of these matchups, and they're going to be annoyingly different to get through. I still think they can run the table, but none of this is going to be guaranteed. They still got to come out and put together another 3 good weeks of football here and end the season with a nice, again, go into the playoffs hot. That matters. Going in with a nice winning streak matters a lot. If they can extend the streak that they're on now to another 3 games, that's smoking hot on fire heading into the playoffs, and that's the best position to be in.
Absolutely. So we'll get into that a little bit more. Any final thoughts for the people, or if not, where can they find you gloating and telling everybody how good the Bills are?
Yeah, my final thoughts are: go to bed, all you degenerates. What are you still doing up with us? I'm exhausted. Yeah, and you can find me at Aaron Quinn 716 and in the Slack channel, enjoying all my friends there.
Come and find me on Twitter in the Slack channel. On Twitter, I'm at Greg Tompsett, GregTompsett. Enjoy every second of this. Let it all wash over you. I can't tell you enough how great it's going to be to watch a season like this continue. Enjoy these wins we've got now. Enjoy the wins that are still coming. And just let it all be a fun part of a rough year, because we've all earned it. Thank you for Aaron Quinn. Thank you for Greg Tompsett. Thank you for Uncle Jumbo's and WESTHERR. You have been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and we are out.